Hey, first grade, welcome to reading today. Our target says I can retell a story using story elements. Now, we've done a lot of practice with that this year, but we just want to make sure that we are still doing that correctly. We're going to focus on our characters. That's who the story is all about. We're going to talk about our setting. That's when and where was this story happening. We need to know the problem. What went wrong in the story? What happened? What's going on? What's the solution? How did they solve it? Or how did they try to solve it? Because maybe they didn't. Because you're not always going to have a story where they solve their problem. And we're going to do this by talking about the beginning, middle, and end. We're going to talk about the events in the order that they happened. And we've kind of been talking about in writing this week and a little bit of last week, sequencing events and why it's important to put them in order. So let's go ahead and start by reading a story, and then we're going to practice. Can we retell a story using those story elements? Okay, the story that we're going to read today is called A Broken Leg for Bonk. And here are my characters. I have Bonk and Lurk. And I'm going to make a prediction. It says a broken leg for Bonk, and on the picture I can see that he has a broken leg. So I'm going to guess that in this story, Bonk is going to have a broken leg. I don't know for sure. We're going to have to read, but it's important when I'm reading a book, I can stop and look at the pictures and think about what the text is saying to make predictions and inferences all throughout the book. Okay, a broken leg for Bonk. Bonk and Lurk are at the playground. Push me on the swing, Lurk, says Bonk. What's the magic word, says Lurk. Presto changeo, asks Bonk. Try again, says Lurk. Please, says Bonk. Lurk pushes Bonk on the swing. Push harder, says Bonk. Lurk gives a big push. Harder, yells Bonk. Lurk gives a bigger push. Harder, yells Bonk. Lurk gives a giant push. Okay, hang on. I'm stopping right here because I'm making a connection. I know one time I was at the park with my sister and I was pushing her on the swing and she kept telling me to push her harder and harder and harder. And I know that I was feeling like, oh my goodness, this is really hard. I hope she doesn't fall off. So I wonder if that's what Lurk is feeling too. Because when it was happening to me, that's how I was feeling. So I wonder if that's how he's feeling. Okay, so Bonk wants to keep pushing harder and harder and harder. Oh, okay, let's see what happens next. Bonk's hands slip from the swing and he tumbles to the ground. My leg, he cries. Oh no. Lurk takes Bonk to the doctor. Bonk has a broken leg, says the doctor. He will need your help. Hey, our prediction from the front cover was right. At home, Lurk gives Bonk a bell. You can ring it whenever you need something. Bonk rings the bell right away. I need a story, says Bonk. Lurk reads him a story. Bonk rings the bell again. I need you to play checkers with me, says Bonk. Lurk plays many games of checkers with Bonk. Oh, I'm making another connection. I know one time when I was little, I was really sick and I couldn't go to school, but my mom stayed home with me and we played checkers all day long. And I know that I wasn't feeling good and I kept asking to play checkers and it was making me feel better. So I wonder if that's how Bonk is feeling, because when it was me, it made me feel better. So I wonder if checkers is going to make Bonk feel better. Bonk rings the bell again. I need you to bake me a cherry pie, says Bonk. Lurk bakes a cherry pie for Bonk. This is nice, says Bonk. I ring the bell and you do what I want, says Bonk. Lurk frowns. You're being bossy, says Lurk. I am, says Bonk. You are, says Lurk. Bonk rings the bell again. I need to say I'm sorry, says Bonk. Apology accepted, says Lurk. I also need some ice cream, says Bonk. Lurk brings him a banana split. Soon, Bonk's leg heals. Bonk is as good as new, says the doctor. No more cast, says Bonk. I know something better than no more cast, says Lurk. What could be better than that, says Bonk. No more bell, says Lurk. The end. Oh my goodness, that was such a funny story about Bonk and Lurk and his leg breaking, but that part wasn't funny. But what was funny to me was all the times he kept ringing the bell and wanting to get all of his different things, and then they were at the swings, and wait a second, I'm telling it out of order. Ooh, that's not good. You know what? I should use a graphic organizer to help me retell my story. Plus, that way I can make sure to say all the important elements, the story elements. Because if I just try to just say it without writing any of it down, I'm going to leave something out that's super important. Here's the graphic organizer that I'm going to use. Now, it should look familiar because we've done a graphic organizer like this before. The first thing I'm going to do, of course, is put my name, and then I'm going to put the name of the story that I read right here. That way I don't forget what story it is. And my story was A Broken Leg for Bonk. Now, I know that that is a long title, and it kind of had to go on the outside of that box, but it's okay. It still fits a little bit. Okay, before we get started, I need to think, okay, what was the setting and what were the characters of my story? Well, the setting, it was during the day and they were at the park, but then they were also at the doctor's and they went home. Wow, that's a lot of places. I should probably write that down. So they were at the park, they were at the doctor, and they were at home. And I'm putting these little dots right here because these are not real full sentences, so these little dots are called bullet points, and we're going to learn text features in a little bit. And they help me keep track of a list. So here's where they were. Oh, and I'm going to say that it was during the day, because I know that. It wasn't really nighttime for them. So this is all of the places that they were. Wow, I'm glad that I sat there and wrote that down because otherwise I might have thought, oh, they were only at the park or they were only at home. But now I'm remembering, wait, they were all these different places. Okay, who were the characters? Oh, well, we have Bonk, right? And, oh, what was his friend's name? Lurk, that's right. And I know how to spell these names because they were in my story. And if I forget, I can always go back and look in my book. Yeah, I had the doctor too. I heard somebody say, what about the doctor? Yeah, he was a character. He wasn't a main character though, right? Was the story really all about him? No, I can go ahead and put him on my character list because he was in the story. But when I'm telling somebody about this book, like I'll tell Miss Lestico about this book later and she's never read it. She doesn't need to remember all about the doctor because it's all about Bonk and Lurk. But I'll go ahead and write the doctor. Okay, now I'm ready to start retelling my story. I need to talk about the beginning, the middle, and the end. Now, let me think. What was happening in the beginning? Oh, they were at the park, and they were pushing each other, and then they fell, and then they broke their leg, and had to go to the doctor, and... Ooh, but wait, who was pushing who? And because I kept using the word they. Oh, that can get kind of tricky. I need to try when I'm retelling to be very specific with my details. So I'm going to say Bonk and Lurk were at the park. Here's where I'm going to start writing in complete sentences. Bonk and Lurk were at the park. Oh, here's where I can say they. I can say they were swinging, but Bonk fell off and broke his leg. So when I retold you the beginning, I told you the characters, Bonk and Lurk. I told you where they were. They were at the park. And I've already told you what the problem is. They were swinging, but Bonk fell off and broke his leg. Okay? Now let's jump to the middle of the story. What happened in the middle? Well, Lurk and Bonk went to the doctor's office, and the doctor put a cast on Bonk's leg, and he said that Bonk was going to need some help. So Bonk got a bell and then started ringing it and had Lurk do everything for him. The middle is where most of your story happens. So it's really important to try to get all those super important details in that middle box. I know that it's a smaller box, but we're going to do our very, very best to include all the important details. Okay, here's what I wrote for the middle box. I said, Lurk took Bonk to the doctor to get a cast. The doctor gave Bonk a bell to ring when he needs help. Bonk rang the bell over and over, and Lurk was annoyed, right? Because he started getting annoyed when he was ringing it over and over and over and over again, right? Now, in the end, that's where the story ends, right? I need to tell you, okay, well, what happened after that? How did the story wrap up? What are the last things that were happening? And this is normally where we see the solution. Well, in the end, Bonk and Lurk went back to the doctor, and his cast came off, and he was all better, and Lurk threw the bell away, so then they could just go back to being normal friends. So in the end, I said, Bonk and Lurk went back to the doctor to get the cast off. His leg was all better, and Lurk threw the bell away. So I went through, after reading, I told you my setting, my characters, and beginning, middle, end. In my beginning, middle, end, I tell you the problem and the solution. It's your turn. On Seesaw, you are going to have a graphic organizer exactly like the one that I just filled out. But you are not filling it out for a broken leg for Bonk because I just did that one. Your teacher has assigned you a new book on Raz Kids Reading A to Z. If you need help logging in, make sure you email your teacher, how do I log in? And they can get you that information. You need to read that book. It's on your level, so make sure you're reading it by yourself. Then you can come back to Seesaw and fill in your graphic organizer. It would probably help if you could print it and write it with a pencil, or you could just write the information in a notebook and take a picture to turn it in on Seesaw. Sometimes it's hard to write on Seesaw with that. When you're done retelling your story, make sure you click that green check mark.